So basically what we did is person one would get a green survey, the next person was contacted would get the white survey, and so on and so on. So because of the subsites, there were 12 different versions of the survey. So there's two versions of the survey, one white, one green. But then there's three major sites, but within Pupukea there's those three sub-sites. Within Waikiki-Diamond Head there's two, and then there's Kailua, so there's 6 different sites. So the surveys were specific to the site at which people were filling it out. None of the questions changed other than the wording, instead of Kailua it would say 3 tables. So I'm going to go through quickly on how we measured some of these things. I'm not going to go into every detail on how we measured every different concept that we were examining, but I just want to give you an overview as to where this research is going beyond where most current recreational tourism research is. To address social carrying capacity, crowding-related issues, overuse, traditional research has had this, like in the survey, you'll actually see in the white survey this question is there, where it says, what's the maximum number of people that you'd accept seeing at one time at a place like Kailua Beach Park? It's okay to see as many as people, just circle a number. The problem you run into with this at very high use areas, such as Waimea Bay, it's pretty hard to figure out what the difference between 1,000 and 1,500 really looks like. All right? So what happens is most people would check. It matters to me, but I can't specify a number. So it's difficult to imagine what conditions would look like and provide an exact number in a high-use area. We still included this question in the survey because we wanted to see how many people were saying they couldn't specify a number based on this approach. So recent research by myself and also Bob Manning, who's been doing this in all the national parks in the U.S., has used image capture technology or photographs to show people what this would look like. And you'll see in the white version of the survey the photographs we use, where we have a generic background image. How acceptable is that? There's no people. Oddly enough, even though the analysis hasn't even started yet, because we just finished data collection based on ocular analysis, just looking at some people's responses, this wasn't nearly as acceptable as something like this, because walking on a beach on your own, you think maybe there's something wrong. So the second photograph, maybe there's like some disease or in that jellyfish, because I got stung 3 times during data collection. So the second picture is 50 people per 500 by 200 yards. Then we double it, and we double it again, and we double it again, and then Disneyland. So what we're trying to do with this is we're going to be analyzing using image capture, using impact acceptability curve analysis, where on the y-axis you have the acceptance, people rate the acceptance. On the x-axis is the different photographs. Although these numbers don't match up with those photographs, the last one would be 800 people. And what you can simply do is just plot the mean response and draw the norm curve or impact acceptability curve. One point is the optimal condition. That's the condition that received the most favorable evaluation. On most studies, probably not this one, although the analysis isn't done, but most studies find that the first photograph, which shows no people in it, is the most acceptable. Well, okay, but do you tell managers then you got to manage for no people? Probably not feasible. It means closing the beach. So the question becomes is, when does it become too much from a social carrying capacity standpoint? And most research puts that as the standard of quality for this indicator. In other words, when you get to, say, in this example, about 8 people, it becomes unacceptable. So then you tell managers you got to try and manage so that that standard is not violated. Another aspect of this is crystallization, or the consensus. How much agreement do people have on what's acceptable or unacceptable? If I survey 2,000 people and 1,000 think that it's totally acceptable and the other 1,000 think it's totally unacceptable, should I be basing a management decision on 2 groups that are polar opposites of each other? Probably not. So it's an important thing is to find out how much consensus there is among the public on what's acceptable or unacceptable. The intensity or importance is just the distance from the neutral point 0 to the points on the curve, and that just indicates how important is this issue to people filling out the survey. If the curve just runs along here, it means no one really cares. But if you have strong opinions at one end and strong opinions at the other end, it's something people care about. So that's important to find out, is crowding or are encounters important? So moving beyond that, we also looked at recreational conflict, and the way we measured that is asked about conflict events for 6 activity groups. And you'll see in the back of the white survey, it's pretty much the entire back of the survey is to measure conflict. Conflict is a hard measure to try and get at. You can't just say, ask people, did you experience conflict with, surfers? Well, what do you mean by conflict? And does conflict necessitate them beating me up, or is it just dirty looks, or is it just the fact that I never even saw these people, I just don't think the activity should be there. So the way we asked it is had different conflict events, being rude or discourteous, passing too close, not looking where they're going, and then asked how often people observed that at the site, and whether they thought that was a problem at the site. And then we also asked whether they saw or experienced conflict at the site. The way we can analyze all this is, that's a whole back page of a survey, is develop psychology groups as to what type of conflict is going on. Is it one-way conflict, which means that, for example, surfers are annoyed at windsurfers, but windsurfers have no problem with surfers. So there's one way. One group is in conflict with another, but it's not reciprocal. Two-way is both groups hate each other. In-group is surfers, for example, in conflict with other surfers. Out-group is two different activity groups in conflict. Interpersonal conflict is where they're actually experiencing these things. They're face-to-face negative interactions. So, you know, I'm walking down a beach and someone cuts me off. That's interpersonal conflict. Social values, however, you might never actually experience or see this other activity group, but have a fundamental difference in values about the acceptability of seeing that group there. We often see this in areas where both wildlife viewers and hunters are in the same area. Wildlife viewers really don't particularly like the idea of having hunters in the area. We also see this in national parks where people are on horseback or llama packing and stuff. Hikers have a fundamental value problem with seeing those types of animals, even though they might never see them. They just don't think they should be in parks. So we analyze this in particular using bivariate statistics and multivariate analysis like cluster analysis to segment user groups. And when I come back to present the final report, all of this will be done. Another thing which I just threw in here is we looked at satisfaction. In most recreation research, if you ask someone how satisfied are you with your personal experience at Kailua Beach Park, everyone says, yeah, I'm perfectly satisfied. There's almost always unilaterally very high satisfaction overall for a trip. That doesn't mean they're satisfied with everything, like the toilets or the crowding or the lifeguards and stuff like that. And this is a very descriptive way of analyzing the results. The managers tend to love this, where you can look at how important are these things and then how satisfied are you with them, where you can put them into different groups. Now these aren't the results from the study, I've just done this for illustrative purposes. But in this example, you can see here that absence of litter and parking availability are very important to people, but they're dissatisfied with it. So managers, that's where they need to concentrate some attention. Things that are important to people, and they're not very happy with what's going on. Areas over here, like things like paying no fees or escape crowds, they're satisfied and they're also important, so that's where managers should keep up the good work. Over here, for example, things that aren't very important to people, but they're dissatisfied, are things that are low priority. Certainly not as big a priority as the things that are in this quadrant. And last but not least, things that people are really satisfied with, but they don't really care, probably a little too much effort. So managers tend to like this. It's not from a researcher standpoint, from a theory development standpoint, this really doesn't take us anywhere. But DAR is very interested in this for each of the sites. So you'll see at the bottom of the first page of the white survey, I think it's the white survey, these types of questions. And there are 15 items that we measured in the survey.